37 Disney Street, which isn't far from you, 3 Disney fans have watched a film which they will now review.
Hello friends and welcome to 37 Disney Street. We're all feeling a bit retro today as we finally take a look at classic number 52, 2012's Wreck-It Ralph. There's no one I'd rather be than I'm Chris Fletcher.
Doomsday and Armageddon just had a baby and it is ugly.
Who are you?
What?
Say your name.
I'm her out of Glee.
Say your own name.
I don't know.
Okay, let's just stick to vibing. Well, milk my nuts. Hello, friends. I'm Hugh Rain.
Oh, I'm Lucy Ray. I thought that was like a quiz question. Hugh gave me that quote today. I was like, I don't have a quote. He says, I'll give you one. That's why it was in front of me then. And I thought that was like a quiz question. I said the quote.
Let's just pause just 1 second. I'm not going to make you restart because it's funnier to keep it this way. But can we go from your name, Lucy? Because what happened was the music swelled as Hugh started to talk, so he was completely cut out of it.
Okay. Doomsday and Armageddon just had a baby and it is ugly. I'm Lucy Rain.
Well, milk my duds. Hello, friends. I'm Hugh Rain.
I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on with my brain today.
I just went, who are you? And she looked at me like, what?
Who are you? You married me.
Who are you?
I'm her out of Glee.
Oh, no, didn't you say what's your character name? Well, no, what's your actual name? So I don't know my actual name.
Look, you can be forgiven, Lucy, because it's been a while. You know, we were supposed to do shows.
Yeah.
We were supposed to do the show, and then another week we were supposed to do the show, and then last week we were supposed to do Loki, and I didn't record it, and we got half an hour into a fantastic talk about Loki. Honestly, you should hear the insight, but you're not going to. And now we're here. And
it would change your perception of cinema if you listened to what we said about Loki last week. No record of it.
Not there now. But on the plus side, we are recording. Everything is happening. The sound coming through. We've got through the intro, even though it was terrible. And here we are, talking about Wreck-It Ralph.
Well, let's.
Well, shall we? Do we want to just jump straight in here and go into the history then? Shall we do that?
Let's do it.
Can do, although if I can't even get through the introduction, it's...
To learn some Disney stuff. Dig a little deeper. No, we ain't dug this far enough. Dig down deep into the facts. We'll find out what we need. Lucy will school us, guaranteed. Open up the windows. Let in the light, children.
It's going to be one of those shows, isn't it?
Oh dear. Once I've got through this, I think I'm just going to let you two talk because there's clearly some disconnect going on between brain and mouth. This film was released on the 29th of October 2012. But we are going back to the good old-fashioned Disney days where things stayed on the cutting room floor and in filing cabinets and on concept boards for years because it was initially conceived in the 1980s under the title High Score. Now, at the time, they didn't feel like the computer... We're burning out. There we go. They didn't feel like the animation of video games was quite capable of dealing with a full movie to make it scan. They didn't know how to do that. They did it again in the 1990s under called Joe Jumps, and then again in the 2000s under Reboot Ralph. Now again, they were getting a bit closer as they got to Reboot Ralph. But to make it realistic, they knew that they had to have real video games included in the movie, the same way they did in Roger Rabbit. So they needed to get lots and lots of franchises on board, and they need to get lots of IPs, which means lots of copyright. They decided to keep the central characters original, mainly because they wanted to avoid storyline baggage. For a lot of your video game characters have got their own backstories that they didn't want to have to juggle and deal with. So anybody who is from another franchise is kept very, very distant from the main story. They don't really involve them much. They do the gag jokes like with Pac-Man and so on and so forth, but they don't really involve Pac-Man in the story. It's based on 8-bit video games, and they developed the movie adding in licensed characters where they made sense before applying for the licenses. So they wrote the jokes and they wrote the storyline based around these different characters, and then they went to the relevant animation houses to ask if they could have them. There's often been a lot of questions, including from Bonnie, as to why Mario wasn't in there, because that's one of the few characters that she knows from video games. The truth is, they wrote the scene, the AA meeting, the Bad Guys Anonymous meeting, including Bowser, and then they applied to Nintendo for Bowser, and Nintendo absolutely loved it, but they wanted to make it a provision that they would only give them the rights to Bowser if Mario got a similarly weighted scene. So the same amount of screen time, the same amount, etc. And this was a big sticking point, and the whole deal nearly fell through. But with a bit of compromise and back and forth, they managed to get Bowser without. They said they couldn't find anywhere where it made sense. They'd already written the movie.
They name checked him at the party and said that'll be Mario. He's always late.
Oh yeah, maybe that was the compromise then. But they couldn't find a way of including him, and they tried and they just couldn't make it work. They said there would be.
That seems strange. Like if you get an opportunity to put him in, and it just needs like a couple of lines. Well, get him in.
They got Sonic in making a public announcement that was plot that was important to the plot.
True. So yeah, but it's often been thought that they couldn't afford him, or that Nintendo wouldn't give them license to him, and it's actually completely the opposite. It's the other way around. They didn't want him, and they thought it would draw too much attention as well. They thought any scene we put him in, if they did put him in the party scene, for example, that would be what you'd be thinking about. So now I wrote this down over a week ago, and now I have to question myself. This is something technical. They often, when at this era of CG animation, nearly every movie they do, they invent some new software in order to do it. And in this one, they introduced bidirectional reflectance distribution functions.
Oh, yeah.
I knew
that. What's the acronym?
That meant. Well, I knew what that meant a week ago, because I remember thinking I was going to talk about it and explain it, and I can't remember. Bidirectional reflectance of distributional functions. It'll be something to do with the way that light. It'll be because certain characters glow, I presume, and so they can reflect in multiple directions. I don't know, but it's interesting. It's there. It was directed by Rich Moore, and it was written by Phil Johnston, who would go on to write Zootopia, and Jennifer Lee, who had another very famous film that she directed and wrote called Frozen. It did quite well.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
The bidirectional reflectance distribution function, BRDF, is a measure of the amount of light scattered by some medium from one direction into another.
Bidirediff would have been a better name for it.
Yeah, Birdurf. Yeah. So I think you're right. Yeah, it's just about how it reflects off certain objects.
Wow.
It was interesting this time last week. Kind of lost its luster, if you'll excuse the pun.
Yes, there we go. Well, it's my fault. Entirely my fault, because I didn't get a chance to watch it before last week, which is why we didn't do it last week. But it's a good job we didn't, because we would have not recorded it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey.
Right.
So, should we talk about expectations, or do you want to go to the kids?
I don't have many expectations from watching it this time. I think I was looking forward to it.
I think I watched it when it first came out without any preconceptions. I'd seen the trailer, thought that looks good, and I watched it. So, this time, same.
I will say, actually, a lot of the things that I will bring up as niggles were kind of my overriding impression of this, but actually watching it back, they took a backseat, and I enjoyed it more than I thought it was going to.
That's interesting, because for me, it's been the absolute opposite. So I used to really, really enjoy this film, and I watched it a couple of days ago, and I felt niggles the whole way through it. So I need you guys to pull me through this, and help me out a bit, because I think there were a lot of things, and I'm not even sure I can mention them as we go through. I will try, that just annoyed me a bit.
We will help to tweak your niggles.
Excellent. And on that note, should we find out what the kids thought?
Yeah.
Today we watched Wreck-It Ralph. It's about a man called Wreck-It Ralph, and he's a video game character, and he's the baddie. And he just really wants to be a goodie and get a medal, so he goes into a different game and he basically gets the medal from it, and then he gets shot into this other game, and basically it's a racing game. So he goes to Sugar Rush and meets Vanellope. So Vanellope, and there's this king, and the king is actually Turbo.
What?
King Candy used to be called Turbo. He stole the game because he got less attention once it came. And I was really scared of him.
Is that why you're talking so quietly?
A bit.
Okay.
They make a cart. She does the race, but while Vanellope and the king are up front, and the first and second, and Turbo is basically this virus. He can go in any game. And then Ralph fixed up the finish line, and Vanellope just had to go through it to destroy the turbo and everything that had been caused during the race. There was a lot of damage. At the end, there are these big robot bugs. Ralph has to get them, so they had to fight the bugs. And at the end, everybody gets the memory back of Vanellope is actually a princess. My favourite bit is when Vanellope turned into a princess. I can't think of my favourite bit, so I'm just going to say my least favourite bit was when Turbo was there, because it was very scary. My favourite character is Vanellope. My favourite character was Ralph, and it's definitely not Turbo. My favourite song was Shut Up and Drive. So I was going to give it a 3, but then because of Turbo and he really scared me, I'm giving it a 2, because he really scared me.
Okay.
I will give it a 4 out of 5 again.
He did not like Turbo.
Oh,
Sorry
man.
about that abrasive music, which I made in 2007.
I thought it was good. Yeah, Lucas, I could not. It was getting him to record that was really hard work, because basically the film finished and he ran into our bedroom and climbed into our bed and pulled the covers right up to his chin.
Oh.
Which is why you can hear this rustling the whole way through, because he's literally scrunching the bed the whole way through the recording.
Do you know what? He's got a point. There's something freaky about Turbo, and I remember as a kid being similarly scared of those types of characters.
Yeah.
Those, just that face. I mean, being to us, we're like, it doesn't seem that scary, but I can see why it's freaky to a child.
Yeah, I completely understand why he was freaked out by it, but he was crying, and it was a bit strange. He's all right now, though. He's slept since. And he's
good.
okay going upstairs on his own now, which he wasn't
Oh, no.
in the immediate aftermath.
He's seeing a therapist twice a week and he's really making progress.
Exactly, yeah. Should we jump into the story?
Yes.
So it's time to discuss how the story goes. I know it can't be worse than Oliver and Coke.
I want to point out the 8-bit ident. Maybe I should have mentioned that in animation.
No,
But you instantly get that feeling, don't you? Like, oh, I see what they're doing here.
Mm.
So you get an 8-bit Disney Studios ident, animation studios. Yeah. So that's that.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I wrote that down. Thought that was nice touch. It's a nice touch, Disney. Well done.
I think the character and the computer game of Fix It Felix Jr. Is extremely convincing. Like,
Yeah.
You could tell someone, "Oh, this is actually a real game," and they'd totally believe it because the sort of mechanics of that. I mean, it's Donkey Kong, isn't it? Basically, it's a type of Donkey Kong like parody.
There's a documentary on Disney Plus about a kid who got the highest score ever on it. That's all like set in the 80s, like a mockumentary thing. I've watched the first couple of minutes of it, but
I think we might have seen
you
that.
should watch this, but I haven't watched it. They went out of their way and they made the game. And they put it in the app stores and everything, didn't they, before the release? I remember it being there to make it all have that authentic, genuine sort of feel to it.
Legit.
Yeah.
Mm.
Good effort.
They start with one of those expositional narration things that turn out to be a character in a real situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a trope. I'm not against it because it does exactly what it needs to, and it's often very gripping. But I'm thinking like Coco, they do the same thing, and then it turns out he's being a shoe shine boy, and you know the kind of thing I mean. But the reveal of this, where he is and why he's telling that story, is very rewarding because that's one of the most memorable scenes in the whole movie. And it's similar to the princess scene in the second one. You know, you've got loads of Easter eggs, you've got loads of in-jokes there. Yeah. So it wasn't, like I say, it is a trope, but it wasn't thrown away. It paid off.
Yeah.
Mm. The intro to this, it wasn't like a ta-da, Wreck-It Ralph. They do that thing, and it is become a cliche now. Rather than go like, here's the title of the film, let's go. It's like, my name's Ralph, and then it has like a sort of an indie comedy, subtle. You know, the title comes up, you know, as he's leaving that meeting, and it's not at that point. It's almost like it's not about computer games. It's about this other thing. Yeah. And I kind of wish they'd gone for the more on the nose, literal 8-bit big title across the screen type of thing. I was like, oh, this again. It's a bit of a thing, is this sort of indie comedy, subtle introduction of a film. You know what I mean?
It lost me very, very quickly when I watched it this time. Like I say, I've never been bothered about this before. I thoroughly enjoyed this film in the past, but when I sat down to watch it yesterday, I don't know what it was or why my head was in this way, but I just straight away was thinking, but this is totally not feasible. I don't understand. We've just watched him being an 8-bit character, and then inside he's not 8-bit. He's like fully rendered 3D. I know this is animation, but it's the same with the whole story. It feels like we're trying to shoehorn an idea into something, and for me, it straight away got me offside. And then I spent the whole film looking for where's the plausibility in this, which is a really strange thing to be.
Yeah, that's really interesting because one of the reasons the original 1980s concept when floated failed was because they couldn't work out they didn't want to do 8-bit animation for
a full
film. Whole film.
Yeah.
And they had to sort of wait until they were able to do what they can do now to do it.
But like, I know what you mean, because Fix It Felix says to Calhoun, doesn't he? Like, look at your high definition. But when you look at them side by side, they have the same definition.
I noted that down as well.
I think we're supposed to assume that maybe they are still 8-bit, but we're just being presented it this way. But then it's like, but you do have the technology to do 8-bit. It's a messy, isn't it?
It is messy, and the whole idea of the things of characters being able to move from one place to another unless you're a glitch, and like Turbo, the fact that Turbo was somehow managed to kill 2 games. Well, killed one game because he wasn't there, I guess, and killed the other game because he was there, but then managed to escape and be somewhere else, hidden for so long, and all these little things. Just in terms of the overall plot of this story, they frustrated me a bit.
Yeah, I
found it a real niggle the whole way through.
Yeah, and I think there are too many ideas in it, and when you have to have characters explain what everything is, which I've said about other films, it's just like, I think that's a failure of the storytelling, where you have to have someone going, well, this is so-and-so, it works like this, and this is so-and-so, it works like this, and then you have Sonic making that announcement.
That announcement really annoyed me.
It's quite a neat way to do it, but at the same time, I'm like thinking, if you have to announce that basically to us, then I found it a bit naff. And also like the whole glitch thing, it's like, you know, when, you know, they have to say, oh, she's a glitch, she can't leave her game. You're like, oh, how convenient, you know, that's going to be a reason.
And
I just think there must be a way to write around some of those problems.
And how is she able to stay a glitch at the end? And if she stays a glitch at the end, then presumably she still can't leave the game. And if she can't leave the game, how can she leave the game in the sequel?
If she's deliberately designed as a glitch, I'm presuming that glitch is like hang on, is that glitch a superpower, or does that version of her in that particular machine have a glitch? Because if it's all
gone, the game was reset. So
yeah,
presumably her memories would have been reset as well, because it's a reset of a game wipes it back.
The reason she was glitched is because part of her code was deleted or locked away, wasn't it? And that's why she glitched.
But she still
glitched. By the end, she shouldn't be glitching anymore.
But she still does.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, if that...
Does she though?
Yeah, because she glitches out of the princess dress. And she's like, nah, that's not me, this is me. And she glitches out, doesn't she?
Okay.
Yeah. There's some things that you could overlook you quite happily, like, and I think you can do. But as we are nitpickers, you know, I think that there's a lot of that going on where you're like, oh, really?
I think the thing for me is that I am a gamer. I mean, I'm not so much a gamer now, but I definitely was a gamer in the 80s and 90s. I've always had a console. It's something that I've always done. And so the idea of this, the concept of it, is a really exciting one to me. I love the idea of it. I love the idea that it's set in an arcade, and that there's all these games being played and stuff. And that you can take those characters and do something with them is a fantastic idea. I just feel like it's generally executed quite clumsily. I think that's my problem.
Right. I just want to delve in here because I am not a gamer at all.
Well, me and Bonnie have just started playing my old consoles. SNES, N64.
The most I can say is to fit in at uni. I used to play a few of the more puzzly games such as Worms and Lemmings. I enjoyed that.
That is so you.
That is so.
I love both those games. Though.
Yeah,
I've got them both.
And I had Professor Layton on the DS. That's my level. You know what I mean? But I'm not into gaming, as it were, into racing and fighting and stuff. It never occurred to me for a second to have a problem with this concept, because let's face it, it's a ridiculous concept. It's the same as the people in your head and Inside Out. It's entirely figurative. No one's meant to think, oh, this is actually happening. And so to then delve into, oh, well, that's not realistic and that's not realistic, it's just beyond. I share your frustration with games that have to explain themselves constantly. Films, sorry, that have to explain themselves constantly. And if the premise for a world, the rules of a world can't be explained in 3 sentences, it does get very sticky as you get through it. And I appreciate, I'm a big Harry Potter fan with the books, and it happens quite organically in the books, but I appreciate when you watch the films, that feels like that. Every other sentence, someone's explaining some sticky bit of magical law that you've got to understand the films, and I do get that, but not one of my favorite films. I'd forgotten about it a bit. I would never have chosen to put it on. I really enjoyed the romp.
I did. I want to make this clear because we will get onto some things we enjoyed, but I did enjoy it. I do have massive niggles, but ultimately I don't think it got in the way of my enjoyment of it. But it's fun to talk about them.
Yes, it is.
Because I just think that there are too many ideas in this, and they give themselves too many problems to solve and have to talk the way out of, basically.
I just think it can be quite hard to follow as well for a younger audience. All these different things going on. I think it can be quite difficult to. I suppose if you don't think about it too much, it's not at all. It's just guy goes to a place, helps someone learn to drive a car. They drive a car and win a race, and that's it, pretty much. That's the story.
I think a lot of the humour and the power dynamics are built around knowing your pop culture as well. And I mean, Lucas is a little bit older than Bonnie, about 14 months older than Bonnie. don't think Bonnie had a clue about any of the references, not just in terms of characters, but how games work, how arcade. She'd never been to an arcade and put a coin in, and I'm sure she understood what was going on, but you don't quite get the same joke that you do when you're our generation. Don't know how Lucas fared with that. So I think as far as Disney films go, this was probably aimed more at the 10 plus audience than other ones, just because the humour.
I think if Lucas hadn't been scared, then when I filmed him and talked about it, he would have mentioned all those different characters that were there because he knew who most of them were, and so that's one of the things that he enjoyed about it. But I think trying to film at that point, he was just so upset by it, made it kind of it really took his enjoyment away of it. Really
Wasn't there a character in this where Bonnie said, "Oh look, it's them"? I'm sure there was. I can't remember who it was now. Can you?
I can't remember.
There was a character, yeah.
She did ask about Mario as well, because like Hugh says, he's just got his Super Nintendo out and stuff, and one of the few things she knows is Mario is a very famous character.
I've had to replace both the main body of the console, because mine's a bit knackered, and the actual game of Super Mario World, because I had the
All-Stars,
the American version,
right.
and it went through a converter which I had, but it stopped working. So yeah.
Well,
to spend some money on this thing.
So have you got a Triggers Broom version of the SNES then?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have, yeah. I just wanted to say about, because you mentioned switching off a bit before, Chris, or not thinking too hard about something, but that happened to me when, I don't know how I hadn't realised, Alan Tudyk does the voice of King Candy.
I think he's the new Welker, by the way.
Yes, he is. I was going to say that as well.
I think I might need to do a jingle. Because
he does.
He's in a lot of upcoming films.
He's the Duke of Wesselton.
Yeah.
Wesselton! He's K2SO. Did you know that wasn't me? Yeah. And Hey from Moana.
And he's been Tuk-Tuk in Raya. Was he Tuk-Tuk? I imagine.
Yes, I think he was.
Yeah. But I don't know how I didn't spot his voice. When he's Turbo, he's basically got the same voice, but I've never actually noticed before. And like, it's a bit of a dead giveaway, but for some reason I switch off. And the reveal at the end, I was like, oh yeah, it's him.
It's not the best Edwin impression I've ever heard, but it wasn't too bad.
I like it though.
It's good enough.
Yeah.
King Candy, melt my duds.
I mean, nobody ever says he's doing an impression of Edwin. We get that style, but
but they've drawn him to look that way as well. And it's all very deliberate.
I love the guy. I think he's great. I love someone who's that versatile.
Well,
yeah, I think it's great.
I think in line with that, Hugh, what I will say is we've talked a lot in the past about certain voice actors that just don't work. But I think the voice acting across the board in this is pretty damn decent.
Yes.
The casting is excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right across the board, yeah. It's
I
perfect.
can't think of a weak voice
no.
actor in it.
And I'll tell you what there isn't, which is great. There isn't like a standout posh British, I say poshish British voice that you always get in, like,
except for Satan.
DreamWorks. Well, it's Satine. I mean, what is that? It's Satine.
Set you up then.
It's Satine. Oh, you did, didn't you? Yeah, there isn't like I don't mind. I like James Corden. And a lot of people don't, but I like him. But his voice as an animated character's voice is rubbish, and Russell Brand's voice, they don't have that kind of weight to them or like life to them. And when you hear this chummy voice go, "Oh, hey guys, it's just over here," and there was none of that in this, which is great.
Do you know what else there wasn't? There wasn't a sidekick. It wasn't a sidekick film. It was a buddy film, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sour Bill was a bit of a sidekick to King Candy.
Okay, yeah, there's an evil sidekick.
Sour Bill.
That's a good character. That would be an easily overlooked character, Sour Bill. I liked him.
No, don't lick me.
Fix-It Felix is a really good character, and that kind of
it's just the honey glow in my cheeks.
That gag of the unlikely couple, in every sense the unlikely couple, but the way that they build that throughout it with these moments, it's really believable and very, very clever. I like that storyline a lot.
It is. You're right. You're absolutely right. It is. And yet, the bit that you mentioned before, Hugh, was what made me go, "Oh, for God's sake!" When he talked about being rendered in high definition, straight away I thought, but
So are you.
And again, I'd switched off from it, and this is the problem. You're telling me these things, and instantly I'm going, oh yeah, it's good, that it's great, is that bit. But when I was watching it the other day, I just didn't feel any of that at all because I was too niggly.
If they made it today, they'd have a bit more of a, like in Soul, where everything had like a fuzzy edge. They'd maybe have like a pixelated edge to them, or just some kind of effects. But
Yeah.
2012, probably a bit more difficult to do.
But hang on, they had bi-directional reflective distributional functions.
They did.
It's easy for you to say.
And boy, did it pop.
I saw it in every frame.
Do you know when he breaks Vanellope's car? I hate that. I can't bear it. It's like even if you had to do it for her own good, I couldn't do it.
No.
And she acts the despair of
Sarah
that
Silverman
moment so well.
Sarah Silverman, yeah. That's all the voices in this are perfect.
Yeah. Well, she's a proper Disney princess, by the way, unlike that Merida.
Well, I thought that, but then she declares herself a president, doesn't she? So she's only a princess for like a few seconds, and then she goes, "Nah, that's not me. I'm thinking maybe a president."
She's still more a princess than Merida.
Because I started to write that down, and then she changed her title as I was writing it. I was like, "Oh, she's not a princess, really."
Yeah, go on then. I'll let you have that.
What else? Do you know? I do like the story of Turbo finding another game, because I don't think this occurred to me either until last time we watched it. He doesn't just escape his game and go into another one. He finds another racing game because he's the greatest racer in the world. So he has to find another racing game. So I like that. That's actually quite clever.
It also
he's
means
gone into a more modern game.
The whole thing you were saying before about not about the original games and stuff also means they basically had to create 3 different racing games for this film.
Yeah.
In actuality, at all different stages. It's interesting as well that Mario doesn't appear in this because the 2 core games in this are proper Mario fodder. The first one being, like Donkey Kong, which is where he originated. Well, did he originate there? No, did he? Yeah, no, can't remember. Anyway, and then the other one being like a Mario Kart style game.
It's a road. It's called the Rainbow Road.
I think he was in another game.
I think he was in another game as well.
Before Donkey Kong.
Yes.
I can't remember what it's called though.
I can't either. It's just called Mario Brothers.
I think it is. Yeah,
it's just called Mario Brothers. And
yeah, that's right.
With the pipes and stuff. Yeah.
What else?
What?
Is that it?
Well, I'm sure more will come out. We could go on to animation if you wanted.
I have one more thing to say. I think I love at the start when they show the arcade and everything that's going on in the arcade is quite an integral part of the intro to the story. And then you go into the arcade machines and you're in there, and that's where it all takes place. I hate that they have to come out of that to further the plot by making the whole thing go out of order. And then the fact that when it's going out of order, that machine, the joystick's moving itself and stuff, which is just not something that would ever happen on an arcade machine. But the whole fact that they have to come out and use human beings and stuff to move that story along, the whole way through that I was thinking there must be a better way, there must be an easy way of doing this that doesn't mean they have to step outside of it in order to do that, because it literally broke the whole thing. And at any point where you're in there feeling like you're part of that story, it's taking you out of that reality and back into something completely different. And I just think that's a shame. I feel the same about the whole as a pixelated thing, I can see out of the glass of the arcade machine to be able to see another machine over in the distance.
Yeah, what is this magic glass? I think the whole thing is like, I think if you just accept that,
I just accepted
that when they do leave the game, they are still pixels, and we're just seeing like this version of it that makes it clearer to us. But actually, they're all basically just electric currents going in and out of wires, and that's the kind of story. But it needs to be expanded just for our. So we just accept this is an interpretation of something more
for all the
literal that happened.
For all the explanations, though. What they could have explained was that in the 8-bit game, for instance, in the Fix It Felix game, that's how they're rendered when they appear in that game. When Ralph's in another game, because Turbo is different in every single iteration of him in every single different game, and that in itself is kind of believable. But when they're outside of that situation, I guess it makes sense that they all look the same. I suppose suppose it does make sense that they all look the same when they're elsewhere, and then when they move back into their games and the restrictions that those machines have on them is what it is. But how do you explain that?
So when Fix It Felix goes and compliments
in the heroes,
her high definition, he's in her game looking at her definition.
And he would be in high definition as well, but he wouldn't necessarily recognise. Maybe that's all right. You see, I'm turning myself around here. I kind of get that. That makes sense.
I honestly didn't care about any of this. I did care a little bit about the sticky exposition, but the details of how it works, because it doesn't work, Chris. It's utter fiction. Didn't bother me. I thought it was well structured. I thought it was well paced.
Yes.
I thought that the emotional payoffs to so many things, like the whole trying to get a car and build a car, the fact that she loves that car so much, the smashing the car, the need to do the race, the messages about what it takes to be a good guy or a bad guy, and you know, it was having the friends, not the medal, wasn't it? The understanding, just having that moment of understanding. I really am going to rate this quite highly, and I didn't think I was before I watched it, and I think that we're getting bogged down in details.
Yeah, because so go on.
No, I was just going to say I have one more niggle and one thing that I thought was great to talk about before we score it. But go on, Hugh, you talk first.
I was going to say broad sweeps. Like that race is really exciting.
Yeah.
You know, the race. I love that whole sequence. It's brilliant.
It is. Yeah, it absolutely is. I agree.
Stuff like that.
So my one niggle is a bit of a pointless one, especially after the conversation we just had. But I'm going to say it anyway. In arcade games, you don't get mini games. You don't get them because you pay your money and you play your race, and then your race finishes and you're done. So there's no point in an arcade game where you would spend your time building the car. You wouldn't do it because it wouldn't give you the time. Not like that. You might choose it from a list. Bang, bang, bang. I'm going to have that chassis. I'm going to have this. But the way that that game was set up, it wouldn't happen. Not in an arcade game. Yeah. That's my niggle. I know, stupid niggle. Right. The thing that I loved was when Ralph had disappeared and Felix there, they're all going, what the hell are we going to do? And the building's not broken. And he comes in and he goes, I'll fix it. And there's nothing to fix. And he kind of shimmies over to the side going, Ralph.
Yeah.
Loved it. There's some really nice bits in it. There really are. And I think I need to go back and watch it again to appreciate it like I used to appreciate it, because I just didn't this week. I just didn't.
I'd watch this again now.
Yeah.
A few days later, because there's so much to see, and like the landscapes are so nice. Like the
Easter eggs.
The Sugar Rush world is so good to look at. It's just nice, and I could happily watch it again.
And the dynamic of those two lead characters is brilliant. It's just brilliant. Their friendship is something else.
I will say though that my enjoyment of this was a little bit marred by knowing what happens in the sequel, which we have reviewed, because that friendship goes really. Did we not?
No, we haven't. I don't think we have.
Oh.
But I want to, because I got a lot to say about
it. Just got really, I won't go into it.
It'll be the last one on the list.
It gets really toxic, does that friendship in the second one, and I had the shadow of that in my mind as I watched them meet for the first time and the friendship develop. But that it does not reflect on this movie, so I'm not going to let that affect my score.
No, well, it can't really.
No, of course it can't.
Because we have to imagine we hadn't seen that yet.
Yeah.
Shall we score it then?
Let's.
I really enjoyed it. Like I say, well-paced, well-structured, fantastic characters, and many characters, and it's not often easy to do that well. So I give it a 9.
9. Here's my summary. It's really enjoyable as a watch. You can watch it several times quite happily. The games they've created are so convincing and well thought out, and the casting is fantastic. It gets bogged down in its own ideas, and I do not like the term going turbo.
No.
It's too oddly specific, and like they keep saying it, oh, has he gone turbo? He hasn't gone turbo. And it's not like a big reveal. It's
How many times did Lucas ask me what that meant?
All right. But that's it. It's
So
like a
many
weird
times.
word, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, any niggles didn't take away from my enjoyment of watching it last week. I'm giving it an 8.
Right. So I wrote this stuff down. So here you go. My score is going to be different to what I've written here. But what I've put is it's fine, enjoyable, even heartwarming at times. But there were too many things I had issues with for me to enjoy it. I just got angry watching it. not Oliver Angry or The Wild Angry, but this is not Disney. It's just not. I don't feel like that talking about it now at all. But that is most definitely how I felt at the time.
I understand that it's not. It doesn't feel Disney.
It doesn't feel Disney
And
at all.
That's not a criticism. It's just an observation.
Well, it's got Sonic the Hedgehog in it.
Yeah.
How can it feel Disney?
But
Really?
when you think about what classic number 50 was, Entangled, and what we got with the Princess and the Frog as well before that, and not so much Winnie the Pooh. I'm going to ignore that just for now because it's Winnie the Pooh. We all love Winnie the Pooh, we know, but it is just Winnie the Pooh. But I felt like we were moving forward in a very definite way, and this doesn't. This feels like they've just gone for an approach that every other studio is taking at this point in time. So it's very vanilla in terms of what it is and how it fits.
Vanilla.
Vanilla, yeah. It's been how it fits in with other films that animated films that have been made at the time. It's very nondescript and it doesn't feel Disney to me. I'm gonna give it a 7.
All right.
Hamination?
Look at the animation hue, the characterization hue, and don't forget the background and the style. Yeah, man.
Animation.
Well, one of the reasons it didn't feel Disney to me is a film often has a look or an environment that you can just go bang, and this had so many. Now that is not a weakness to this film. The realisticness of Hero's duty, it's not realistic, but you know what I mean. Having seen those kind of games, the way they just nailed the look of that and the movements of it, and then Sugar Rush, totally different, totally nailed it. And the same with every element, including the real world, is they must have had just buildings full of concept artists working on individual sections, because it was like making 5 films in terms of concept.
It must have been great, like working on this and being one of the concept artists and basically designing a computer game. You know, like how much fun would that be?
And that, but not just that, designing a computer game and then designing a whole history behind that game to make it plausible, so that when people are talking about it outside of the film, it's got this whole legacy attached to it. That's brilliant. That's like the Black Mirror guys did with Bandersnatch, and the fact that they got this Spectrum game. The guys listening, I don't know if you've seen it, but the guy's listening to a cassette tape on the bus at one point, and it's the sound of a Spectrum game loading. And if you record that audio and you've got a Spectrum, you can load the game and play the game. In
the Netflix, in the
Netflix
Charlie Brooker thing.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
I'm going to have to be rude for a second. Please talk amongst yourselves because I don't want to stop the recording, but I have to go shut the door because I'm getting lots of moths in.
Oh, yes. It's that time of year. I hate moth season. One
of my favourite things in the whole film was the way that Fix It Felix danced and moved, and all the little jumps in the air and the hammer glow, and his little friends who kind of blipped along.
That whole world of the Fix It Felix world, the movements of those like civilians, and even like little touches like when the cake gets splattered, there are little pixelated bits of the cake. It's not all pixelated, but the bits of it are. And Ralph's shirt is plaid, as I say, but it's kind of hinting at like pixels. And then like Tapper, the bartender, is even more jerky because he's like maybe an older game, so he's even more jerky than some of the others.
What? Yeah. Why are they jerky? I was trying to understand that, but I guess.
Again, it's just that thing where like maybe we just accept that even though they are fully rendered once you go through the screen, that's just for us as like a device, and it's literally just the animators animating them like that,
having a bit of fun,
and we just accept
Felix was like
that.
Felix was like that on the dance floor and in that scene. But when Ralph knocked on the door and he went outside of his building and was talking to Ralph, he wasn't like that at all. It stopped. So
I just think it was an animator's joke. I just think it was an animator's joke, and it was a good joke. this is how he dances. You know, it's like he's going around being normal, then everyone says, dance Felix,
Because
and that's his dance.
The other answer to that is either they don't move like that and it's boring, or they move like that all the time and it just gets a bit tiresome.
Didn't you think the residents, when they were in 8-bit, looked like Sums?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
When they
did.
were on the roof?
Yeah. I like that they all had the little sour personalities as well.
Yeah.
Here's something that's always bugged me, and it's Zangief's face. When he goes, does not necessarily mean you are bad guy. That is a DreamWorks face. If you don't know what that is, anybody listening, Google that. Just Google DreamWorks face. It's that kind of over-animated, and I was surprised to see it in a Disney film, because every time, from the first time I saw it, I thought, oh, that's not very Disney animation. That's DreamWorks. Zangief.
Is Zangief from something I don't know?
Street
Oh,
Fighter.
Lucy, yeah. Street Fighter.
2.
Okay. Okay.
They used a lot of Street Fighter characters, actually, didn't they?
This is like, yeah. But
Blanca
this is
appeared
like,
at the end.
this is like when we watch Marvel films, and I get like so much more appreciation, because even like just a name that they mention, I know it, and even if that character is inconsequential, I know like, oh, that's that character from that comic.
Yeah, because when Kang the Conqueror turns up, I have to watch about 4 hours of YouTube to fully appreciate what that means.
I just go back and read all the comics.
Hugo's Kang the Conqueror.
No, actually, no. I don't think I've got any Kang the Conqueror comics or stories, but I heard of him at least, so that's as far as I went. That's enough. There is one other character who stands out a mile. Can you think who it is? I'm just like, well, he doesn't look right.
It stands out.
It's Beard Papa. He's that one who looks like a gnome and he's got small eyes. He's asleep in like he's in like a turnstile thing or something.
Oh yeah.
And do you know why he looks that specific?
Why?
In the sugarish world? Because he's actually a Japanese cream puff mascot.
Oh.
For the brand Cream Papa. So that's why So I'll let him off. So, you know what I mean? Because he's got really small eyes and he doesn't fit in that world. And I'm just, every time I see him, I'm like, he doesn't fit here. That's why.
Really, that's really cool though. That's quite a deep cut reference, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so many of the games are developed classic games are developed in Japan. It's just obviously a nice little nod, isn't it? What a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. I'm giving it an extra point.
But you know what? I don't have much to say other than that, because I really enjoy it. I think it looks great. It's at the top of its game for 2012. Like even now, it like totally holds up.
Yeah, it does.
And because of the story, they've had to get really creative and inventive with things, and it's kind of a joy to watch.
I mean, this could have gone in story as well, but when you write, we've talked about the have to invent games and how to play games, but rich details such as the Laughing Taffy, having to come up with problem solving of how that goes down, and the mentors and the Kirk, and the fact that they write that into the actual story. But then the concept artists will have largely been behind that as well. You can't write that kind of story without the visuals. So this is where animation and the animation process of storyboarding and things really comes in. So I think the concept artists will have a lot of credit to take for story elements.
The Laffy Taffy was one of my niggles, because I could just imagine them sat there going, "Oh, this.
We need to get them out."
Do you know what rhymes with Taffy? Oh, Laffy. Oh, yeah, right. So let's make them laugh, and then they come down, and then
I found that a bit odd in that
very
world.
Contrived. It was a bit,
a
little bit strange, but
La la la
I take your point
la
from
la
an
la.
animation point of view. Yeah, why did they start singing?
Well,
They're
they just
not
didn't add to
singing
that
that.
point. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
But
should.
I mean, that was the great gag with them making a love heart round them at that point. You know, it's like the world is in on the joke.
Yeah, but again, that was another one of those bits that made me think, oh, I'm not all about these two in this story at all. Oh, see, these are the little niggles that I had. And normally, as I say, any other watch.
It's a shame when little niggles get in the way of looking at the film as a whole.
This is like the opposite of Black Cauldron for me, because when I watched Black Cauldron the first time, I was like, oh my god, this just doesn't hold up at all. It's terrible. It's not good. And these are all the problems that I have with it. And then every time I've watched it since, I've just enjoyed the story more and more and more. And I think I've just hit it this time. It's like, you know, the 8th time when you're at Disneyland and the 8th time you go on It's a Small World, you're like, why am I on this thing again? I don't understand it at all. But the 9th time, you're back to loving it again. I think that's what this is going to be for me. I think it was just an off day.
You're having a sugar crash at that point, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened with me and Sleeping Beauty, because I still feel bad about that scar.
Important question, though, Lucy.
I was having an off day.
Important question. Artwork on your wall.
Yeah, I would have Sugar Rush on my wall. I would have various. I mean, it's not an artworky kind of film, is it?
No.
I would have Sugar Rush on different shots on it, but I would certainly have elements of it on stuff like pins, lounge fly bags, these kind of things. I think elements of it are very marketable.
So
I like the eclair and donut cops.
Yeah, they're good. They are good.
I'd have them as a plush.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only setting as such that I didn't like is the heroes, whatever it's called, that game, and the bugs and stuff. It was all just a bit,
bit dark and a bit
but
depressing.
I understand why they did it, because shoot 'em ups are a big deal in arcades as well. You know, that's what a lot of people want to play. So I completely get the reason behind it. It didn't blend well. I don't think it wasn't somewhere nice to be. And then the fact that gets moved into the Sugar Rush world as well. Its whole plot development is great. In actual fact, the fact that those things don't fit is what makes it quite adventurous at the end, I think, and quite intense. But I just don't like it. I don't like it to look at it.
No, I agree. I'm not sure you're meant to like being there. I mean, that's the thing. They've all got PTSD, haven't they? He meets that guy in the bathroom at Tappers. Let me go back there, man.
And I do like the way he's continually walking into the wall.
Yes,
and sliding around.
These sight gags are brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like
No.
Turbo Bug. That's the only other thing I want to say. Don't like that either.
Turbo Bug.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Yeah.
Go
towards the light. No. Yes. No. Yes.
If we're talking about character design, though, if the job was to scare 8-year-olds witless, Turbo did its trick, didn't it, Chris?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. I think that Lucas has seen pictures of Momo. I don't know if you heard about all that.
Yeah.
And
Who's
I
Momo?
think
It's I'll show you later.
It's a piece of art. It's a piece of Japanese art or something, isn't it? But there was a whole scary story associated with it not so long ago, and to the point where schools were sending letters to parents saying, if you hear anything about this, stop your kids from doing it, when it was all just nothing real. But yeah, go look it up on the internet and find out about it. But I think Lucas has seen those pictures, and I think this stirred that in him. That's my theory behind it all, because those big, like, deep cocaine addict eyes and stuff.
I'm going to show Lucy a picture of Momo.
Look to his face,
Right. While you do, shall we score the animation?
I've got it here. I want to get your reaction.
Oh.
She's seen it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Animation. I'll go. It's my turn. Just because we follow a certain pattern, not because I'm.
Which just happened, doesn't it?
Desperate for a turn.
Kind of fallen into it.
We get it, and I've drawn attention to it, haven't I? Here's what I've written. So, because it sounds written, so I need to declare that it's written. So I've said, honestly, there's nothing to fault. There isn't for me. It looks good. It's inventive. The worlds are perfectly realised. The character design is excellent. 10.
Hey. I've put there's some really nice touches, and it looks great. But in trying to encapsulate all of the games ever, they've stuck to a style that doesn't feel authentic in terms of character. It comes back to what I was saying in the story bit, really, about what they're like when they're all together, that they all look the same, is the thing that lets it down for me. I don't know how they would have done it different, but that's it. By doing that, I just don't think it quite works for me. But I really like, as you guys have said, I really like Sugar Rush and the way that looks. I love the 8-bit stuff. I absolutely love the way that all that looks. I'm going to give it an 8.
I'm just going to go straight down the middle of those two things and give it a 9. I agree with you, Hugh. It's nearly faultless. But Chris Dad had a very pertinent question when he said, would you put artwork on the wall? There are some bits of it that are unsavoury to look at. I understand that for character decisions, location decisions, there had to be. But it's not the most gorgeous piece.
No.
some music.
So do, so me do, me so do, me do. We are going to talk about the music. Hits, rate the songs and score the incidental bits.
S-U-G, what note is it? S-U-G-A-R, jump into your racing car, sugar rush, sugar rush. I love that song.
I was going to say, that is the highlight.
And it's Japanese, which is so different. It's so fun.
There's some really good 16-bit music going on.
I can't remember exactly how it goes, but just the music at the intro is very good. The score there, that's really nice. I think this is going to be a quick section, isn't it?
I mean, there's not a lot other than orchestration, but do we include sound design in this?
Well, don't forget also. Well, I think we should finish the songs because there is obviously "Shut Up and Drive."
Well, let's let Chris speak.
It's not as offensive as Clocks in the Wild, but it's borderline for me as that song. It's borderline as offensive as Clocks in the Wild.
Was that an existing song?
Shut Up and Drive. Yeah, it was 4 or 5 years old by that time. It's like 2008, 2009, something like that. So that came on. And I thought, oh, for God's sake. And I knew it was in it. I remembered from the past, but I thought, oh, for goodness sake. How old is this song anyway? It can't have been written for this. It just can't have been. So I went and had a look, and it wasn't. And then I thought, oh, it's just like Clocks. It's just like Clocks in the Wild. It's just, because it's the mood I was in, wasn't it? So then I put the Wild on, as in that clip on YouTube. Just that clip of Clocks. I played 3 seconds of it, and I went, no, it's not as bad as that. It's not as bad as that.
No.
Yeah.
But this thing of putting pop songs into the films, if it's done and it's a song that's been written specifically for it, then fair enough. Fair enough. I don't have an issue with that. But when it's let's just pick a bit of popular music from 4 years ago and stick it in, I don't get it. Just because it's a driving, they could have written something for that quite easily.
Well, you know how George Lucas wrote Star Wars with Hulst's planets in mind, and then he directed it to that, he edited it to that, and then he gave it to John Williams and said something like that. And John Williams is a genius, and the result was fantastic. Was it not Holst?
No, yeah. Go on. We saying he's a genius, but almost all of his melodies are pinched. Yeah, so yeah. But
well,
is the wedding
different
march
conversation.
And the funeral march, isn't it? Pretty much.
I could understand the directors of this getting that song and editing it and going, this is the tone, the pace, and everything that we want for this moment, and then giving it to a songwriter. I can understand that, but I agree with you, Chris, that it takes me into. Where else might you hear that song? Wandering around Tesco with the shop star radio on. It takes me into a taxi driver's bad radio leads. It takes you somewhere else, doesn't it? It doesn't take you into
it. Owl City wrote a song for the film, didn't they?
Did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wasn't familiar with the Shut and Drive though. I thought it was from this, so I don't mind it at all. Because I'm so unfamiliar. I was like, I just think of this film when I hear it. That's all I think of.
There you go.
But yeah, there's the Owl City song. When can I see you again? Oh, oh, oh. It's all right, isn't it?
Bonnie likes it.
It's Owl City, isn't
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hear the Wreck-It Ralph song in the credits? I can't remember.
No, I don't.
I think it's just called like the Wreck-It Ralph song or something.
I was consoling my crying son at that point.
All right. Well, I was in two minds because it sounds like something that I would listen to. But then also the lyrics were really naff. So I was like, I don't know, I'm undecided about this. But yeah, so that's another one. There's a Wreck-It Ralph song in the credits. It's kind of fun.
There was some really good sound effects and audio gags and appropriate music, little musical stings coming in throughout to sort of support the games. And it's hard for me to kind of be more specific than that and say, oh, like when this, like when that, because it was throughout and it was, sound design on video games is a thing in itself. And to replicate it in a movie situation, along with speaking characters, storylines, and orchestration, and make it all come together is quite an achievement.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like the little touches, like when the ghost in the I was going to say Alcoholics Anonymous in the he starts flipping and it does all the classic Pac-Man sound. Doo, 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 doo.
Yeah.
Little bits like that. It's nice.
All the little power-ups in Sugar Rush as well.
Cuties or whatever it's called as well. Nice conversation. All nice.
Excellent. Having said that, it's not a musical. I know that we shouldn't demand things to be musicals, but as much as we appreciate the skill in them, it's very hard to sort of judge.
This couldn't have been a musical because a musical kind of adds something, whereas this is so specifically like about these computer games. It would just be it'd be a layer too much on top of that weird abstract idea.
You're right, but just as the Sugar Rush tune is a really good catchy tune, music is integral to computer games, and so to have had some music as memorable as Tetris, for instance, and things like that in there would have been the extra touch that would have just lifted it a bit. I think there are things they could have done just to give it a bit of an extra edge that a regular soundtrack, which is what it had to all intents and purposes everywhere else, didn't really lend it, I think. Yeah,
you would have thought they'd have gone heavy on the chip tune side of it, but not so much.
No.
Just little hints here and there.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Right, Chris.
Well, I've started off my music bit. Again, I'm going to read what I've written, but I don't necessarily feel like this now. But so that's what I've put is this is, to all intents and purposes, a Pixar film and score. It's a real indicator of everything getting a bit merged. I don't know where this was in my head, and we haven't talked about this at all today. But obviously, in my head at that point in time, I was thinking this it doesn't feel like Disney, but it does have that kind of feel of what Pixar were doing at that point in time. It doesn't feel like it fits with the regular classic Disney classic films, and score-wise, the way that they do that, those emotive type scores that you get in all the Pixar films, it feels very similar to that. Shut Up and Drive is a 4-year-old song and not written for the film. It's almost as distracting as Clocks in the Wild. And then I went back and watched it. And it's not as irritating as that, not even close. So basically, I haven't written anything about the music, but looks of it. I think that they execute some of it really, really well. I would have liked it to have been a bit bolder. I think that's what I've liked. A bit bolder in the way that they orchestrated it. But I wrote down 4 there, and I think that's really, really mean. So I'm going to give it a 6.
I appreciate some of the jokes, like I mentioned, but I don't think it does enough musically to really make it stand alone on its own. I wouldn't buy the soundtrack, so I'm going to give it a 6 as well.
There's not a great deal here, but I like pretty much all of it, so I've given it an 8.
Oh.
And I've got a score for this. Do
you want to know about the IMDb and things?
Yes, please.
Well, IMDb, true to form, has gone 7.7. Although, to be fair, that's about 0.3 above average, isn't it? It's not done too bad. 7.7. Now then, Rotten Tomatoes tends to be a little bit more discerning, shall we say. So just one moment.
We should fill this with noise.
Oh, yeah. Talk people.
Right, so it's done well. The critics have given it 87%, and the audience have given it 86%. Now, if you follow these Rotten Tomatoes scores, it's very rare that they're that close. There tends to be a disparity one way or the other.
Disparity?
Disparity, thank you.
I'm
struggling.
I don't have the bell. I forgot the bell.
We should
but
sample
yeah,
it.
1% in it. And 87% is high for a critic's score anyway. So it's done well.
Yeah.
I do actually have the bell as an isolated sound.
Do you?
Maybe we'll let her off.
We'll stick it on as an audio at some point. Then if you don't have it in the future, we can have a synthesized bell.
Because I put it in the kids' thing sometimes.
Oh yeah.
It was a commercial success with a budget of 165 million. It actually made 471 million worldwide.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hence the sequel.
Mm.
Mm.
Well, we've scored it 77.
Oh.
And that is the same as
The IMDb score.
Robin Hood.
Right. Okay.
I'm all about
I can't
that.
remember what we all gave Robin Hood, but I do love Robin Hood. And I will have scored the music very high on Robin Hood, I think.
One less than Fantasia 2000. No, Lady and the Tramp. My score's getting mixed up here.
I think it's a fair score, that.
One less than Raya, one more than Onwards.
Right.
Onward.
Oh, we're
I know.
missing this bell today.
I know, sorry. Hercules 78. So yeah, it's done all right, hasn't it?
Then somewhere.
Yeah.
I'll accept that. I might have edged it slightly higher, but you forget what other amazing films we've done. You know, you think, would you put it up there with Tangled? No. Would you put it up there with Muppet Christmas Carol? No. So, but I highly recommend it.
We're getting towards the end, you know. We're getting very close to the end.
I know.
Of the classics. Are we doing Mary Poppins Returns?
Probably.
I would like to.
Do we need to go back and
Probably.
do Enchanted at some point?
Yes.
Yes, it wasn't available.
So
was
it's
it?
on Disney Plus.
Yeah, so at some point, I reckon close to Christmas, maybe it'll be available.
Beep, 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 beep.
Cool. Whatever it is, that's the word.
Favourite
Most
bits.
enjoyable bits. I was going to say. Then I couldn't remember.
Most enjoyable bits. There's a little there's a little things. There's a little nod that Sour Bill gives Ralph in the castle. Just when he's trapped in the cupcake, and I think King Candy and Sour Bill are just about to walk off, and he just gives him a little nod, like, and it really made me chuckle. I also like it when Calhoun and Felix are on the bridge with Vanellope, and Felix gets his little hammer out in preparation for the bugs. It's just some kind of like exciting, and like I like that about his character. He's always optimistic, and he's always ready to help. And he gets his little hammer out, his pathetic little hammer, like ready to fight all those bugs. He just reaches out and takes it out. I'm like, oh, bless him. Favorite bits.
I think it's very apt. You know, like Captain America doesn't have a sword; he has a shield because he doesn't attack or defend. I think it's a really good character trait of Fix-It Felix that his weapon fixes things. You know, it doesn't destroy things. Bless him.
Except his own face. Oh no, it doesn't. She destroys his face.
It fixes his face.
Yeah.
His face, yeah. Cool.
Chris, you got any Chris? You're like, cool. Yeah. Next.
Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of said I really like the bit when Ralph's disappeared, and they're trying to make things happen. I found that really funny. I laughed a lot at that, and I like Vanellope just in general. I think Sarah Silverman has quite an irritating voice at times, but it just works so well with that character, and just I just find her very, very likable.
I tell you what Bonnie liked, and that was the Nesquik stand, because she has Nesquik every morning.
Bit too close to work for me, that.
Right, yeah, of course, yeah. Well, but when she sees things like that,
she goes,
yeah, she can't believe it's like in a Disney film. It's like, that's why I this, something so mundane and everyday. She's like, that's my thing, that's my drink. Yeah.
Here we go.
Crime Factor.
Go on, then.
It's absolutely beautiful.
It really loves it. I don't know why they just can't be together.
Hugh's Cry Factor.
Now, that bit when Felix lifts Sergeant Calhoun out the Nesquik sand, and she looks up at him, she gazes up at him, and he's all heroic. There's something about that kind of gets me started. So that's when I get started. I'm like, oh, here we go. It's begun already. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
It's like it's magical. She looks up at him, and anyway. And then when Vanellope loves her awful car, she's like, oh, and she's like, I love it. I love that, the enthusiasm for that awful car. So I'm up to a 3 at this point. Then when Ralph wrecks it, I'm like, oh no. And when he smashes the Mentos, You know, when he's going down, he's like, I can't remember the speech, but it's like, I'm bad. That's good. You know, he's falling down in slow motion. He's thinking about Vanellope. I'm like, oh my God, it's a 4. It's a 4. But then, the very end, you know, when he's like, he sneaks a peek at her. He's like, that's my favorite part of the day when they lift me up because I get to see Vanellope. I mean, it would have been a 5, but Bonnie was yapping all over it. I think it deserves a 4.
Ooh, they were good ones.
First two weren't so
Oh,
hot.
but they sounded good in my ears.
I'm out of practice.
Excellent. 4. Flipping heck. Well, I'm just going to tell you something. We talked about this in the Disneyland Paris show before, but we've had a few problems with audio of late, particularly when we've been together. So at the moment, you might have noticed we don't have the usual screen up and everything. That's because we're not in the same place, because we're socially distancing so that the guys can go on holiday without having to risk me, even though I don't have anything, potentially giving something to them. So we thought we'd just play it safe because they're going on a Disney cruise and that.
Stay in your side of the house.
Yeah, and the audio works okay when we do it like this, but the audio when we've been together, as you might have noticed I was going to say over the last few weeks, but it's probably over the last 3 months because we've only done 2 episodes in God knows how long. And it hasn't been that great. So we've been trying to work out how we can deal with it. And we have Patreon pals who have done a really, really generous job of giving us a little bit of money towards things every month. And we've been keeping that to improve things as we go along. So we've bought some new gear. I'll show you here this interface.
Listeners, Chris is holding up a box with some knobs on it.
Yeah, the box of knobs. And we've bought a microphone to go with that, but we need 3 microphones because there's 3 of us. So at the moment, we've started a thing on Patreon. Basically, we're trying to raise £100 so we can buy these 2 microphones so that we can put an end to all these awful audio problems and start being awesome like we used to be back when we just podcasted and we were in the same room and we had stuff that worked. But it's not just that. If once we raise that £100, anybody who has donated or is currently a Patreon Disney Street pal, we're going to do a big giveaway. We're going to give away all sorts of stuff. So first off, Hugh's offered to do a drawing of your choice. So he as an illustrator, he's going to illustrate
Disney themed.
Disney themed, yeah.
You'll be asking for no minions.
There you go, Disney themed. But also, we're looking at what we can get in terms of books, in terms of some bits that we might be able to pick up on our travels and things as well. So we want to do a big giveaway, and it'll be probably for a couple of you, 2-3 of you. We'll have some nice prizes to give out once we reach that goal. So watch this space. But if you're interested in helping support us, it'd be very, very welcomed. And if you head over to Patreon and look for 37 Disney Street, the links and everything should be in the details below if you're watching, and in the description if you're listening as well. Yeah, go and have a look at it, and if you feel like you want to support us, then they'll be very welcome. If you don't want to support us, you're equally welcome not to. There you go. The other thing that I didn't mention in the other show is we have some merchandise now as well. If you go to TeePublic, you can search for 37 Disney Street and you can get shirts with our logo and stuff on, or stickers. It's a very nice cup, a really nice cup, amongst other stuff. If you fancy having a look, go and have a look.
Magnets.
Yeah, magnets. Yeah, you can get
Got
magnets.
my eye on some magnets.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to be back in, it'll be a few weeks, unfortunately, because of the cruise, and then I'm away as well the following week. It's going to be probably 3 weeks now before we get a chance to do the next film, which I think is Frozen, isn't it?
Mm.
Wow. So we've finally got to a biggie in terms of what the public think about it. Anyway, but what will we think about it? Who knows? I guess we'll have to find out.
I've got some things to think about it.
Yes. Well, we'll be back in a few weeks to talk about shadows that don't work and other certain things within that film. But for now, we're going to say goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye, pals.